It was a few days before Christmas and the house was quiet. The children were writing out their lists of what they wanted. For Dot, it was makeup and cute little outfits. For Yakko, it was a few phone numbers from his favourite actresses. But for Wacko, he didn't know what he wanted. He laid there on the living room floor and stared at a blank piece of paper with nothing coming into his mind. Until he looked at the television and saw a commercial for a new virtual reality video game about being in a horror movie that looked so incredible he knew he had to have it. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Kate was sitting at the table with her laptop open and tried to think of another screenplay to write. But unfortunately, she had writer's block, so her husband, Bobby, tried to help her out. But every idea he had been done.
Okay, how about this? Scientists find a way to bring back dinosaurs by using all mosquitoes.
Please tell me you're joking.
As this went on, Wacko came walking in all excited to tell his parents the news, and the way that he chose to do that was by sharing the slogan that he saw on TV.
Buy me the bloody eye or go to Hades!
Wacko!
Young man, in this house we use a little word called please.
Bobby joked, knowing his wife wasn't too happy about it.
It's this really cool video game that I want for Christmas. Can I get it? Please? Can I?
Wacko begged while giving them his best puppy dog eyes, but the couple looked at each other, knowing what the answer was gonna be.
Wacko, honey, do you remember when I showed you my favorite childhood book, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark?
Yeah?
And do you remember what happened after you read that book? You had nightmares for a whole month, you wouldn't sleep in your own bed, and you had to go see a therapist. So in other words, no!
But...
No buts. Now get out of here. I gotta come up with a movie before we end up on the streets.
Wacko headed to his room upset, but then he got an idea. If his parents weren't going to get him the game, he knew someone who would. Later that night, as everyone was asleep, Wacko was still awake under his blanket, with a flashlight, writing his letter to Santa. After he was done, he headed to his window, opened it, and let the wind be the way for the letter to find Santa, since no one knew his real address. But there was one small problem. Wacko accidentally spelled Santa a little differently, leaving the wind to blow the letter in a different path. Instead of heading to the North Pole, it flew into a small crack in the sidewalk that was pretty deep. So deep it flew into the underworld and ended up in the wrong hands. In the underworld, we see the devil sitting on his throne and sipping a glass of wine, while one of his subjects was standing by waiting for his next command.
Oh, Damien, you know what I love about Christmas time?
His subject was confused, not understanding why he would know that, but he let his boss continue.
Because with the lack of education that the living children are getting, I get fan mail.
Right as he said that, another one of his subjects came up struggling, carrying a big, heavy mail bag over his shoulder. When he got to the devil, the subject dropped the bag in front of him. As Satan looked over the letters, he started to get more and more angry, because this year the children's letters were so nice and cute, talking about the things that they did that were so helpful and such.
Ugh! Isn't there one child that for once could sound like my pupil? Just once!
All his subjects started to get scared. They went through the pile trying to find something that would help their leader calm down. Luckily there was, and it was Wacko's letter. As Lucifer read it, a smile grew across his face.
Damien, go find our Santa. Tell him he had one stop in America.
As the days flew by, it was finally Christmas Eve, and the children couldn't wait to see what they got. As Dot and Yakko were walking to the kitchen to get their glasses of water for the night, they were shocked to walk in and see Wacko just finishing his 10th glass of water.
Geez, Wacko. If you wanted a waterbed for Christmas, you could have just asked Mom and Dad for one.
Wacko turned to his brother, not too happy with that joke.
For your information, I'm drinking all this water so I can be the first to wake up early tomorrow and open my presents. What?
That's not fair. I'm telling.
Dot said, but as she was about to run off, Wacko grabbed her tail and begged her not to. Then he explained his plan, leaving his siblings dumbfounded.
Boy, you never learn.
Yep. Seems all that therapy was nothing but a waste of time. What? Well, I've grown up since then. You'll see.
Wacko said as he stormed off to his room. Yakko and Dot just shrugged their shoulders and got their water and went off to bed. That night, when everyone was asleep, the real Santa was just leaving their house. Not long after, another figure flew through the sky that seemed similar to Father Christmas. But when you looked closer, you could see that it wasn't him, but Krampus. For Krampus's sled was rusty and black. His reindeer were living skeletons, and he had a robe on that was like Santa's, but dirty as can be, and his laugh was not too pleasant. When he found the address he was looking for, he looked forward to what he had in store. Meanwhile, as Yakko was in bed sleeping, he had a dream that he was in the mall trying to find Santa to tell him what he wanted. When Wacko found him, he cut the line and jumped on the poor guy's lap and started to read his list. But the list that he had on went from forever. Days and years had passed by the time he was finally done, and when he finished, Wacko looked at Santa, only to be shocked that he was nothing but bones. And the skeleton broke apart and turned into dust. Wacko just sat there frozen. He didn't know what else to do but scream. After he woke up, he was happy to know that he was still in his room, but he still wanted to know what that crazy dream meant as he went to use the bathroom. As the evil claws came out of the fireplace, he was disgusted by all the cute decorations he saw. He took one of them off the tree and dropped on the floor and stomped on it with his hoof. As he looked over his list to see who the kid was and what he wanted, he stopped when he heard a noise, realizing that someone was still up. Krampus tried to stay quiet, but that failed when Wacko passed by, planning on getting something to eat. When he saw Santa, he couldn't believe it. He jumped for joy into his arms and hugged him.
Oh, Santa, I can't believe it's you. It's really you. And to think that all the kids at school said you weren't real. Did you get my letter? Did you read all the good things I did? Like how I helped my parents take care of my baby brother? And I even changed his diapers. I ate all my vegetables, and I helped an old lady cross the street.
As Wacko was going on and on, telling him about all the good things he did this year, the monster was confused, while also getting sick with hearing these good deeds. He then carefully grabbed Wacko by his scruff with his claw-like fingernails and put him down. He tried to tell him with hand gestures to stay there while he got Wacko's gift. As he tried looking for it in his bag, Wacko ran off for a moment and came back holding a big plate of holiday cookies for him to try. When Krampus saw this, he started to freak out. Sugar was like acid to demons, and he didn't want those treats anywhere near him, which left Wacko confused and upset. Wacko begged him to just try one.
Oh, please, Santa, please. Mommy and I worked so hard making these cookies for you, and they're so delicious. Please.
Wacko then jumped on the couch and tried to put one in his mouth. The demon's skin started to burn and melt, and with the pain he was in, he just couldn't take it anymore. So he went into his bag and found the closest thing he could find, being a video game case, and gave it to Wacko, headed up the chimney, and went back to Hades. As Wacko stood alone in the living room, he was still confused about what had just happened, and when he looked at the case, it had nothing on it, but he knew it had to be the game that he wanted, so he ran into his room and started to play it. When morning came, Wacko and Dot jumped out of bed and headed to the living room to open up their presents. As Kate and Bobby sat on the couch drinking coffee, they were happy to know that the kids were having a good Christmas. But then they noticed that Wacko was nowhere to be seen. They went to his room thinking that maybe he was still asleep, but instead they found him in his bed, rolled into a ball and shaking really badly, like he'd saw a ghost or something. When Kate went over to see if he was alright, she found the open video game case, and then she understood what had happened.
Wacko, did you happen to get a hold of a copy of the Bloody Eye?
He didn't say anything, leaving her to get even more mad.
We told you you could not have that game, because this would happen. And just for that, that means no more video games. You're going to be doing all the chores around the house.
As she continued, Bobby went over to get the game out of the console, but he knew he had to speak up after what he found.
Kate?
No more Christmas, no more birthdays.
Kate?
You're going to start babysitting.
Kate?
What?
This isn't the video game.
What?
It's the first season of Teen Titans